The alien jungle was alive with strange sounds, buzzing insects, hissing leaves, and the distant calls of night creatures. Jack had walked through it many times before, but tonight was different. Tonight, he heard something that made him stop in his tracks. It was a scream, not the wild cry of an animal, not the roar of a predator. This was a voice, high, sharp, and filled with fear, cut through the night air, so real and desperate that it made his heart beat faster. Jack turned his head, trying to find the direction. The scream came again, echoing through the trees. It was closer this time, and his instincts told him someone was in danger. He tightened his grip on his rifle and moved forward. The jungle floor was soft and wet under his boots. Every step sank a little, and roots grabbed at his ankles. Thick vines hung from twisted trees like snakes, brushing against his shoulders. Above him, shadows moved in the branches, but he kept going. He passed giant leaves that glistened with drops of water, even though it hadn't rained. The air was heavy and hot, sticking to his skin. He could smell something faint in the distance. Smoke. Smoke meant fire. Fire meant people, and people might mean trouble. The scream came again, sharper now, followed by deep, rough voices speaking in a language he didn't understand. They were not friendly voices. Jack slowed down, moving more carefully. His boots made no sound now as he stepped over fallen logs and slid between thick bushes. Through the trees, he saw a strange orange glow. It flickered and moved, casting shadows on the trunks. The smell of smoke was stronger. The voices grew louder, mixed with low laughter and the crackling of fire. Jack's eyes narrowed. Whoever was there, they were enjoying themselves, and it didn't sound like anything good. He crouched low and moved closer, the rifle resting in his hands but pointed down. He needed to see before he acted. The ground rose slightly, and he climbed a small ridge, careful not to step on dry leaves. From the top, he could finally see the clearing below. The fire burned bright in the center, and around it stood tall figures. Alien, tribal. Their skin painted in strange patterns, their bodies marked with scars. But his eyes went straight to the middle of the fire's light. There, tied to a wooden frame above glowing embers, was a young alien girl. Her skin was a pale silver, her eyes wide with terror. Her wrists were bound above her head, and her legs trembled. The heat shimmered around her, and she let out another scream. Jack's chest tightened. She was alive, but for how long? He sank lower behind the ridge, his mind racing. The voices of the tribal aliens were deep and rough, their laughter chilling. The fire crackled, the girl whimpered, and Jack knew one thing for sure. If he did nothing, she would die, and he couldn't walk away. Jack stayed low, his body hidden by the ridge and thick jungle plants. The heat from the fire reached him even from this distance, and the smell of burning would mixed with something else. Something sharp, almost like cooking meat. His stomach turned. The tribal aliens were big, each one almost a head taller than Jack. Their skin was dark and rough like old bark, painted with stripes of red and white. They wore necklaces made from bones and teeth, trophies from whatever they had killed. Their eyes glowed faintly in the firelight, unblinking, watching the girl like hunters watching trapped prey. She was bound to a frame made of thick wooden poles. The flames below licked upward, making the air shimmer. Her silver skin was already red in places from the heat, and sweat dripped from her face. She pulled at the ropes, but they were tied tight, cutting into her wrists. The warriors laughed as one of them jabbed a long stick toward her legs, not quite touching but close enough to make her flinch. She let out another cry, weaker now, her voice cracking. The sound stabbed at Jack's chest. He studied the scene quickly. There were 8 warriors in total, for stood close to the fire, their spears resting against their shoulders. 2 others were squatting near a pile of supplies, bundles of rope, baskets of strange fruit and sharpened stones. The last 2 moved around the clearing's edge, keeping watch. Jack's eyes darted to the shadows beyond the firelight. The ground there was uneven, dotted with thick roots and low bushes. If he stayed low, he might be able to circle around unseen. But the moment they spotted him, they'd throw those spears before he could even aim his rifle. The girl's head hung forward, her breathing fast and shallow. Her knees buckled, but the ropes kept her upright. Her silver hair was damp and stuck to her face. She didn't look much older than 20, if her species aged like humans at all. Jack clenched his jaw. He didn't know who she was, or why these tribal aliens had taken her, but he knew she didn't deserve to die like this. One of the warriors reached into the fire with a long stick, pulled out a glowing coal, and held it near her cheek. She jerked away, but the rope stopped her. The warrior laughed, showing sharp, yellow teeth. The others joined in. Jack's fingers tightened around his rifle. He could take a shot, but it would be loud. The others would swarm him before he could get the girl free. He forced himself to breathe slowly. Rushing in without a plan would get both of them killed. Somewhere behind the wall of noise and heat, he had to find a way to even the odds. And he would, because leaving her here was not an option. Jack stayed hidden behind the ridge, eyes locked on the clearing. The fire crackled, and the warriors' deep voices rolled through the night air. He counted again, 8 of them. Too many for a straight fight. Even with his rifle, they would close the distance before he could reload. He scanned the clearing for weaknesses. The 2 guards on the edge of the firelight were the real problem. They stood far enough apart to watch both sides of the camp. If he moved wrong, one of them would spot him instantly. The girl whimpered, her voice hoarse now. Her knees sagged, and her head tilted forward. The heat under her was growing stronger, the flames rising as the warriors fed the fire with thick branches. Sweat dripped from her skin, glowing in the flickering light. Jack's mind raced. He could wait until the warriors got distracted, but with what? He looked at the baskets of fruit and the pile of rope near the supplies. If he could cause enough noise on one side of the camp, he might be able to pull her free from the other. His hand went to the knife strapped to his leg. Quiet kills were his best chance. If he could take out 1 or 2 of the warriors silently, the numbers might even out. But timing would be everything. A sudden laugh from the fire made him glance up. One of the warriors had taken a bone cup and scooped some hot liquid from a pot hanging over the flames. The smell of cooked meat grew stronger. The girl turned her face away, trying not to breathe it in. Jack's stomach tightened. He'd seen enough backwater cultures to know what this was. They weren't just torturing her. They were preparing her. His grip on the rifle tightened until his knuckles turned white. He pushed the thought aside. He needed a clear head, not rage. He watched the guards carefully. One was chewing on a chunk of fruit, distracted. The other was shifting his spear from hand to hand, glancing toward the jungle like he was bored. That could be his opening. The wind shifted, carrying the smoke toward Jack's position. He crouched lower, letting the haze cover him. Slowly, he slid along the ridge, every step careful and deliberate. A loose stone rolled under his boot, but he caught it before it fell. One sound out of place, and this plan would end in blood. He stopped behind a thick tree trunk, only a few meters from the nearest guard. The alien's broad back was turned, his attention on the fire. Jack's heartbeat thudded in his ears. This was the moment. He could hear the girl's weak breathing even from here, and it lit a fire inside him stronger than the one in the clearing. Tonight, he wasn't leaving without her. Jack waited for the guard to shift his stance, for that small moment when his weight would be on the wrong foot and his spear lowered. The fire crackled behind them, covering the faint sound of Jack's slow breathing. The guard scratched the back of his neck, turning his head slightly. That was the opening. Jack moved. He stepped forward fast but silent, his boots finding the soft patches of dirt. In one motion, his left hand clamped over the guard's mouth, and his right drove the knife deep under the alien's ribs. The alien jerked, his eyes wide, but no sound escaped past Jack's grip. Jack twisted the blade and pulled it free. The guard's body went limp. Jack eased him to the ground, rolling him into the shadow of the tree. No one near the fire noticed. 1 down, 7 to go. He crouched low and scanned the clearing again. The second guard was still on the far side, lazily leaning on his spear. The others near the fire were laughing, their attention on the girl. She hung limply from the frame, her chest rising and falling quickly. Her eyes were half closed, but she was still alive. Jack spotted a loose stone near his foot. An idea formed quickly. He picked it up, aimed, and hurled it into the thick bushes on the opposite side of the camp. The stone crashed into branches, making a sharp noise. The second guard's head snapped up. He muttered something to the others and walked toward the sound, spear ready. The distraction worked. Jack circled toward the supplies, moving through the shadows. The baskets of fruit were stacked high, and the ropes lay in a messy pile. He could cut the girl free now, but the 4 warriors by the fire were still too close. One of them turned, frowning toward the darkness where the second guard had gone. That was enough for Jack. He darted forward, slipping behind the frame. The heat from the fire hit him hard, burning against his skin. The girl's eyes widened when she saw him. She tried to speak, but her voice was nothing more than a dry whisper. Jack put a finger to his lips, signaling her to stay silent. His knife sliced through the first rope at her wrist. The fibers parted with a faint snap. He worked quickly on the second rope, but halfway through, a loud roar came from the trees. The second guard had found nothing, but he had seen something move in the shadows. His shout alerted the others. The warriors turned sharply, spears rising, eyes narrowing toward the back of the frame. Jack yanked the last rope free, catching the girl as she sagged forward. He swung her arm over his shoulder. The first warrior charged. Jack stepped back fast, the fire at his side, the girl clinging weakly to him. The quiet part of the night was over. The warrior lunged at Jack, his spear tip flashing in the firelight. Jack twisted aside, feeling the sharp edge graze past his ribs. The girl clung to him, her weak legs dragging, slowing him down. Another warrior roared from the left, charging with a heavy club. Jack swung the rifle off his shoulder and fired once. The gunshot split the night, echoing through the jungle. The club wielder fell back, a hole smoking in his chest. The sound froze the others for half a second, but only half a second. Then all 7 remaining warriors turned toward him at once. Their roars filled the clearing. Jack pulled the girl tighter against him and backed toward the shadows. A spear flew past his head, missing by inches and disappearing into the trees. He fired again, dropping another warrior, but his bullets were running low. The girl's breath was hot and shaky against his neck. "Run," she whispered weakly. "I'm trying," he muttered. His eyes locked on the 2 warriors blocking the way to the ridge. One charged, but the uneven ground slowed him. Jack kicked the burning log from the edge of the fire toward the warrior's legs. The alien stumbled, tripping over it. Jack used the moment to fire again. This time the shot echoed with a metallic ring as the bullet hit the warrior's shoulder armor, knocking him down but not killing him. Another spear came flying. Jack ducked, but it grazed the girl's arm, making her cry out in pain. Rage flared in his chest. He pivoted, fired, and the thrower dropped. The clearing was chaos now, shouts, the crackle of the fire, the smell of smoke and blood. One of the warriors had grabbed a horn from the supplies and blew it, the deep note rolling through the jungle like a warning bell. Jack cursed under his breath. Reinforcements might be coming. He spun toward the ridge, spotting a gap between 2 warriors. "Hold on," he told the girl, and then he ran. The first warrior stepped into his path, swinging a bone club. Jack ducked under it, shoulder-checking him hard enough to send him stumbling. He felt the girl's nails dig into his shirt as he leapt over a fallen log. A second warrior reached for him, but Jack swung the rifle stock into the alien's jaw. The crack of bone was loud, and the warrior dropped. They reached the tree line. Jack dove into the shadows, the firelight shrinking behind them. But the sound of heavy feet pounding the ground told him the chase had begun. Branches whipped against his face as he pushed forward, the girl's breaths coming in short, panicked gasps. The jungle swallowed them, but the roars of the tribal aliens followed, echoing through the dark. This was no rescue yet. It was only the beginning of the hunt. The jungle closed around them, thick with vines and huge roots that reached up like claws from the ground. Jack's boots pounded the soft earth, his grip on the girl tight. Every breath burned in his chest, but the heavy steps behind them were getting closer. A deep roar echoed through the night. They were gaining. The girl's head rested weakly against his shoulder. "Leave me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Not a chance," Jack said, pushing harder. A spear slammed into a tree trunk beside him, shaking loose a shower of leaves. He swerved left, darting between two massive roots, and heard another spear crash into the dirt where he had just been. The tribal aliens were fast, too fast. They broke into a small clearing lit only by the moon. Jack stopped, setting the girl gently against a fallen log. He checked his rifle, 3 bullets left. The knife was still in its sheath. He glanced at the trees. If he ran now, carrying her, they would both be dead before they reached the ridge. He didn't want to fight, but there was no other way. The first warrior burst into the clearing, spear raised. Jack fired 1 clean shot. The alien dropped, sliding across the dirt. 2 more followed, roaring, their painted faces twisting in rage. Jack aimed at the nearer one and fired again. The bullet hit him in the chest, but the alien kept coming, blood dark against his skin. Jack sidestepped at the last moment, slashing with his knife. The blade tore across the alien's side, and he collapsed with a grunt. The last warrior in the group swung a club at Jack's head. Jack ducked, feeling the rush of air above him, then drove his knife into the alien's stomach. The warrior's roar turned into a gurgle, and he fell. Silence fell for a moment, broken only by the girl's breathing and the distant shouts of the others still searching. Jack wiped his knife on the fallen alien's leg and reloaded the rifle with his last bullet. He knelt beside the girl. "Can you walk?" She nodded weakly. He pulled her up, keeping one arm around her for support. "Stay close," he said. They slipped back into the trees, moving as quickly as her weak legs allowed. Every sound felt louder now. The crunch of leaves, the snap of twigs. Somewhere behind them, a horn blew again, closer this time. Jack's jaw tightened. If they caught him in the open again, that one last bullet wouldn't be enough. But the ridge was ahead, and beyond it maybe safety. Or maybe the rest of the tribe waiting for them. The ridge rose before them, its slope covered in tangled roots and sharp rocks. Jack guided the girl upward, his arm tight around her waist. Each step felt heavier, the air thick with the sound of pursuit. Behind them, branches snapped and guttural voices called to each other. The tribe was close. The girl stumbled, her foot catching on a root. Jack caught her before she fell. "Almost there," he whispered, though his own chest burned from running. Halfway up, a spear whistled past, cutting through a cluster of leaves and striking the ground just ahead of them. Jack turned, rifle raised. A warrior was climbing after them, his painted face lit by the moon. Jack fired his last bullet. The shot echoed, and the warrior fell, tumbling down into the shadows. But there were more. Always more. They reached the top of the ridge, and Jack paused just long enough to scan the land below. The jungle stretched out like a dark sea, but far away, a glimmer. It was faint, but it was there, a light. Artificial. Human. "See that?" Jack said, pointing. "We get there, we live." The girl nodded weakly, her silver hair clinging to her damp face. They started down the other side, moving faster now, the slope working in their favor. But the ground was slick, and twice Jack had to catch her before she slid. Behind them, angry roars grew louder. The bottom came fast, and Jack pushed her ahead, keeping one hand on his knife. He had no more bullets, no more time for plans, just the will to move. The light ahead grew brighter. Jack could make out a metal shape, an outpost tower, human-built, its beacon sweeping across the trees. They were close. The final stretch was a narrow path between thick bushes. Jack shoved through, hearing the pounding of alien feet closing in. One broke through the foliage behind them, spear raised. Jack turned, ready to meet him head-on. But before the warrior could strike, the sharp crack of a different rifle split the air. The warrior dropped. 2 more shots rang out from the tower, and the pursuing warriors fell silent, disappearing back into the jungle. A voice shouted from the beacon's platform. "Over here!" Jack pushed the girl forward, and together they stumbled into the clearing at the tower's base. Human soldiers rushed out, grabbing the girl and pulling her into safety. One of them caught Jack as his legs finally gave out. The girl turned in their arms, her eyes locking on Jack. "You came for me," she whispered, her voice shaking. Jack managed a tired smile. "You screamed," he said, "and someone had to answer." The jungle behind them was silent now, but Jack knew it wasn't over. Somewhere out there, the tribe still hunted, and next time they might not be running.